Today on the CTV News at 5, overwhelming support for a teen trying to get help for sexually abused children. Plus, a Southern Alberta mother speaks out about the care her son is getting in a local care center. And it's fitness training day for the Lethbridge hurricane veterans.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Alberta Human Services Minister Dave Hancock is responding to comments from a Coaldale teenager who says the province isn't doing enough to help children in rural Alberta who are victims of child sexual abuse. Hancock has sent a Facebook message to Allison Lee's mother saying he's hoping her daughter gets the help she needs, but that message has done little to satisfy Allison or her family. Terry Vogt reports.
15-year-old Allison Lee has had an outpouring of support from across the country since posting an emotional video on YouTube about a disappointing meeting with Alberta Premier Alison Redford. Lee, who was sexually abused when she was just 6 years old, says there aren't enough resources in southern Alberta for the victims of child sexual abuse or their families.
I don't live in Calgary and Edmonton. My parents are financially not able to drive me every week to counseling. I mean, that's something that I don't think many families can do. So I guess, does the province end south of Calgary? I don't exist.
Lee's online video has received thousands of views on Google and another 1,000 on YouTube, mainly thanks to tweets and retweets by former NHLer and abuse victim Theo Fleury. It has also prompted a response from Human Services Minister Dave Hancock, who sent a Facebook message to Allison's mother, Heather. But Heather calls the response disappointing.
This is a good one. He said, if this child's not getting the help she needs, I'd like to meet her. He met her.
That was back in March, when Hancock presented Allison with a Great Kids Award for 2013.
He met Allison, shook her hand, and when Allison was done that photo op, Allison said to him, so, Mr. Hancock, when is your office going to decide to give money to Little Worry?
Well, Hancock hasn't spoken to us yet. He did tell the Lethbridge Herald that funding for the Little Warriors' proposed treatment ranch was denied because the government doesn't have enough information about how it would help victims. The government says it spends $10 million a year on counseling and support services for victims of child sexual abuse. But Allison says she's lived through it, and that hasn't been her experience.
Because there's no resources here, and if there are resources, you're paying for it. And that you shouldn't have to pay to get better.
Terry Vogt, CTV News, Coaldale.
While Hancock has yet to return our phone calls, he has told other reporters that it's important to raise the profile of child sexual abuse, but it's also important that the government make sure public resources are used effectively. A Lethbridge Regional Police officer has been cleared in an investigation over his use of force during an arrest. This after a woman had to be treated for a broken arm. On May the 11th, a number of officers were called to a domestic dispute in Lethbridge. There was a confrontation between an officer and a woman, and she ended up with a broken arm. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team investigated the case, and they've determined the use of force applied by the officer was reasonable and justified. In a press release, the executive director of ACERT says the woman was angry at the time, and she herself admitted to waving her arms at the officer, making it look like she was going to hit him. Also that I am satisfied that the subject officer laid hands on the affected person as she moved towards him, and he used her own forward momentum to pull her to the ground in an effort to prevent an assault. It was during this contact the affected person came to be injured. The use of force applied by the subject officer was reasonable on all of the circumstances, and he was justified in doing so. Lethbridge Regional Police say the drowning death of a teen at a city lake last week was not suspicious or criminal. The 16-year-old was seen splashing around in Henderson Lake when he disappeared below the surface Wednesday around 11:30 p.m. Rescue crews and a canine team conducted a search but couldn't find the boy. Divers were able to recover the body Thursday morning. After an autopsy was completed in Calgary on Friday, police ruled out foul play in the death. The teen's name will not be released. Okay, David Spence, what have you got for us today?
How about hot and sunny weather?
We'll take it.
Does that make you happy? We've got a lot more. 30 degrees in Lethbridge today, and I think temperatures are going to climb into the low 30s again for most of the rest of the week. We'll have a few ups and downs, but lots of sunshine. Very little precipitation. Those needing some moisture may get a shower coming along within the next 24 hours, but not much more than that. So we'll have all those details and something about rotten fruit a little later on.
Rotten fruit. It scares me that I don't know anything about this. Thank you, David. Well, there's another candidate vying for a spot on Lethbridge City Council. Mark Lieb has been a resident of Lethbridge since 1984. He is a Lethbridge College graduate and had a 21-year career as a business owner and financial advisor. Lieb is also active on a number of local organizations, including the Royal Canadian Legion, the Chamber of Commerce, Home Builders Association, and the Lethbridge Air Show. He says his priorities include taxes and municipal spending, accountability, accessibility, and transparency. And Coaldale Mayor Kim Craig is going to be seeking another term in office. Craig says Coaldale has made some great strides in recent years, but he still feels there's more work to be done. During his last term, Kim introduced curbside recycling and began working with the county to address stormwater and flooding issues. He says council has been working on economic development strategies to attract commercial and industrial businesses, and he'd like to see that continue.
With the 4-year terms coming on as opposed to 3-year terms, I think there's going to be a significant turnover in various councils around Alberta, and having an experienced council and led by an experienced mayor in this time, I think, will be a real benefit for Coaldale.
Civic elections will be held on October the 21st. Well, it's the end of an era in the Crow's Nest Pass. The last Crow's Nest Pass promoter has been printed. The promoter was founded in 1930. It covers the entire municipality of the Crow's Nest Pass. The paper was folded as part of massive cutbacks made by Sun Media earlier this spring. However, the promoter was given a brief reprieve because of the June flooding. Well, it's something most parents hope they never have to experience, watching their growing child enter a nursing home before they do. But who do they turn to when that nursing home doesn't give proper care and causes more harm than good? We sat down with one mother who shares her story. Jeanette Rocher reports.
In her 70s, Jolene Hudson is able to walk around and be active, while she watches her 56-year-old son be confined to a nursing home bed.
He's just laying on his back and he can't sit up at all.
Dwight Hudson has suffered from muscular sclerosis for 25 years. He's unable to move or have much feeling below his neck. He usually gets around in a wheelchair, but that changed after spending 8 months in Edith Cavell long-term care facility.
Some of the workers did not do what they were supposed to do. And because he has a wheelchair, they would leave him in too long at a time without moving him and changing him.
As a result, Dwight developed huge bed sores or pressure ulcers on his backside and tailbone. The pictures are so graphic that we've decided not to air them.
It was 8 inches long, 5 inches across, and 2.5 inches deep. And why this staff let this sore get so huge is just unbelievable to us.
Dwight was moved to the hospital for 7 weeks of treatment with no real answers from the nursing home.
So far, I have not been able to talk to the director. She's been very busy. I've talked to a few of the girls that work there, and they all claim they weren't working with Dwight at this time, but somebody was very lax in their care.
Since Dwight's release from the hospital 2 weeks ago, he's been staying here at St. Michael's long-term care facility, where he feels he's getting much better treatment.
Feeling better? No.
Feeling better? No.
Enjoying it more? Yes. Enjoying the care that I'm receiving? Yes.
It could take 4 or 5 months for Dwight's sores to heal, which means he'll be completely bedridden during that time. Meanwhile, Hudson says she hopes by doing this interview, it prevents others from getting hurt. Jeanette Rocher, CTV News, Lethbridge.
When CTV reached the Edith Cavell Care Centre CEO, he told us that he couldn't release any personal information about Dwight's case without his written consent. However, the nursing home did say they have confidence in their staff to deliver exemplary care to all residents and that the staff all take great pride in their work. Harvesting is well underway across southern Alberta. Today, a group of Coaldale farmers climbed onto their combines to raise money for a great cause. This field is being harvested in support of the Canada Food Grains Bank. Farmers who support the Coaldale Lethbridge Community Growing Project donated 15 combines, trucks and balers to help bring in the crop. Weather was a challenge this year. The field was hit by water, wind and hail, but in spite of that all, organizers say yields were better than expected. Proceeds from this year's harvest will be matched with federal funding to provide food aid and support to 35 countries.
We had a great turnout and it's beautiful weather. Crop looks good. We did have some damage. We had about 20% hail damage on it, so it won't be as huge as we had hoped, but yeah, no, things are looking good. It's a great way to help people in third world countries. I mean, we have the food bank to help the local, and this is the Canadian Food Grains Bank helps the people in third world countries, India, Bangladesh, Africa. I've been over there and seen what it does, and it's just amazing to see how it changes their lives.
The project is expected to raise close to $120,000. This week's edition of Farm TV takes us back to a time where farmers and tractors were started by hand and hard work was never far away.
Young is a farmer, owner of Broxburn Vegetables in Lethbridge, Alberta. Paul has always had an interest in old things, particularly old tractors.
I always had this love for a Lance Bulldog because the neighbor in Holland had a Lance and you could, from miles away, you could hear it go pop, pop, pop. So one day I saw a Field Marshal for sale and I had no idea what they looked like, but somehow I had heard they were like a Lance. So I phoned the guy in Claresholm and I said, "Is it like a Lance?" He says, "I think so." He says, "Well, I'm coming tomorrow." I love these tractors. They're all one-cylinder, two-stroke diesel, so they're unique in its own right.
Some people didn't like them as they had no electric starters.
They were tough things to start. These are diesel tractors, so they have relatively high compression, so you cannot crank through the compression.
Paul recently entered this tractor in Lethbridge's Whoop Up Parade.
I entered my Series 3 Field Marshal that I bought 25 years ago in Claresholm and won Best of Show for the historical category.
Paul's Field Marshals are often on display at Broxburn Vegetables, at the Prairie Tractor and Engine Club in Picture Butte, and at events around southern Alberta.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
And here are the day's markets.